This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway To Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 132, live from the Subway To Shea studios in my office. Shout out to Andrew Tredenick. Andrew, the Mets beat reporter for NorthJersey.com and The Record Sports. He came up in the clutch for me last episode when the whole Kodai Senga news broke and joined me in such a pinch. I can't thank him enough for that. Make sure you're following him on Twitter and X at Andrew_Tred for all the latest Mets news. Now, on to this episode. And we finally have New York Mets baseball games, everyone. And here to talk about all of that, early standouts, early highlights in the first week of the games, is Carson from Mets Weekly. He co-hosts Mets Weekly alongside Frank Cugino and the Rhino Andrew Acevedo. Carson, welcome to the Subway To Shea podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to have baseball back. I really am. Even though we've had some ups and downs already so far, it's just kind of how the Mets are, but it's good to have it back, and it is good to have the Astros televising from one angle right now, as all the players look like ants.
As we are currently live here, the Mets are playing a game against the Houston Astros. They're down 2-0 in the bottom of the fifth. Tyler McGill's on the mound right now. So far, so good for him. 2 innings pitched. He hasn't given up a run. I think he has 2 strikeouts or 2 walks? I'm trying to do this all off of my phone because, like you said, we are not getting this televised at all. Why would MLB do that, right? Why would MLB help us out so that all the fans can watch every game here? But they're down 2-0. Jose Quintana got his first start of the game. He didn't fare so well, but, again, it's, literally his first start of spring training. And I know I've been on Mets Weekly a few times, but this is a first for you to be on my show. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I had to make sure that I wasn't too Hollywood for the show. I had to let you know. Because I think every single time that we tried to set something up on here,
yes,
I think we've overlapped with some other stuff, and it happened like that. But we're here. I'm glad. I think it's a long time coming that I had to return the favor. You've been on, I don't know, a good 4 or 5 of Mets Weekly features.
Yeah, and we've done a couple of big live streams. That big trade deadline one that we did last year, that was a lot of fun. I hope we get to do that again. It's been great connecting with you and the whole team. And obviously, Andrew's going to get on this show. Frank, I'm going to get him on as well at some point during the season. A lot of content to come at you with, and you guys got a lot of great content. And now you're doing the 30 projections in 30 days. So I'll let you promote that as well during the show. So make sure everyone checks out Mets Weekly on YouTube. Also, this is the first guest that I've had on who I only have a first name for. So it's like your Prince right now.
Yeah. I don't think my last name has ever been public online. And I think I just keep that like
for the better
for some reason.
For the better when you're on Twitter and X, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I've had my my middle name out there a few times, but nothing. My last name's just never really come up. No one's ever really asked. No one's really pulled it out of me. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay being in the likes of Prince and Cher and like that type of that tier, because those are some legends there. So we're good being in that tier.
Before we break down everything for the Mets and what's gone on in this week full of games, let's hit up the chat. We got 15 people in the room right now. Darren Rivera in the chat. Shout out to you and me. And also shout out to you, Darren. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guy Ebby's in here. And he's in here to troll and only troll Carson. So letting you know that he will be doing that today. That's my sports, LFGM. Jose Iglesias for second base. We'll be talking about him later on in the show. CP Mets and Knicks, a good friend to both of us on the shows. Fellas, a salute there. So appreciate you for joining us. And there he is, Andrew Acevedo. His last name is
He exploded it. He exposed it. Oh well.
All right, let's
Ridiculous.
get into today's show. And last week, when I came on the air with Andrew Tredenik of NorthJersey.com, we talked about Kodai Senga and his injury. And since then, there's been an update. He's obviously, we know he's dealing with a moderate posterior capsule strain, and he received a PRP injection. For people who don't know what that is, a platelet-rich plasma injection. So he won't be throwing for 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, he'll only be reevaluated. So we don't even know if it's going to take longer. Hopefully it doesn't. And hopefully he's back by, I say, mid-May, earliest early June. So hopefully that works out. Manager Carlos Mendoza hopes the shot accelerates the healing process, as do we all. And who will take a spot, right? Yeah, the options that are out there: Tyler McGill, Jose Budo, Joey Lucchesi. Max Krennic I had on here, and I had to update his status because he is now out for the beginning of the season with a left hamstring strain. Unfortunate for him because he had a pretty good debut. We go along with Tyler McGill, started the opener of all of spring training against the Cardinals. He was okay, pitching very well tonight. And Jose Budo, he had a good start in the second game. 2 innings pitched, 3 hits, no earned runs. We're going to get into him because I want to talk about a possible role for him that's not as a starting pitcher, but we'll see what happens. And Joey Lucchesi has not pitched in a game yet. It's early, Carson, but who has impressed you so far out of these pitchers?
Oh, I mean, I would say, I got the closest look to McGill and Budo. Obviously, Krennic was untelevised. I mean, we got a little bit from him, but so, it's kind of hard to evaluate that. It'd be nice if the MLB can give us, the streams of all these games. But who cares about promoting your game at this point, to be honest? In terms of the starters, I would go, I always have the soft spot for Tyler McGill, but I think that all of them have looked pretty good. I talked about McGill and Budo's debuts on my show that premiered yesterday, and it looks like both of them have added some stuff to their repertoire, which is actually pretty cool. Obviously, we had, McGill add that splitter or American spork or whatever we're calling it. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to that. I'm more of the guy who evaluates the top 2 slots of fastball slider, of how those kind of complement each other. So those looked a little bit better for McGill. Looks like he's got that harder slider now. Budo, I think it's kind of odd with him because I think that he looked really good in terms of results. I think that he was able to attack the zone a little bit better than he was able to compared to last year. Looks like he's got a little bit more spin on his stuff, but it's I don't know. There was a few mislocations from him, but obviously I'm just nitpicking there. But overall, I'd say from pitching performances as a whole, not even just starting pitching, overall the pitching has looked fairly good, and it's been leading us to some Grapefruit League wins, which has been very important because we need to get our Grapefruit League ring. So that's very important for the Mets.
I think to a certain extent, wins in spring training are somewhat important to, the morale and the mental awareness of this team. I mean, we've gone spring trainings where most of our spring trainings, the team has been like under 500 and not have a good record.
Yeah,
and we haven't made the playoffs in most of them. So to have a team get off to a start, and who knows, they could probably stink it up the rest of spring training. But you got to be encouraged, like you said, by the pitching and what we've seen from the pitching. Now, I know you are a huge fan of Tyler McGill. Outside of fandom, let's talk about stuff. How do you rank these pitchers with stuff, and where are you having them set as getting into this rotation?
I mean, I would say that Tyler McGill, it's really hard to evaluate him because his stuff is different every single time that he pitches. So and that's the problem with him, with the just overall consistency. And that's kind of just been his thing throughout his entire career. I'd say that overall, he does have the best stuff. Budo is more of a kind of the innings eater. He's going to get you outs. And sometimes if he misses the intended spot, then he'll get roughed up, but you're there to get. He's in my opinion the rubber arm of all these options. And then Kranick obviously goes down and stuff like that. So kind of going with Budo and McGill, I'd say that personally, I think that they're going to go with a 6-man rotation. So like,
I agree.
That's what I think they're going to do, and I think they need to do that to kind of get more quantity in this rotation, especially with Kodai Senga, because you're not going to get Kodai Senga innings from one pitcher. You're going to have to get it from the quantity, whether it's 2 or maybe even 3 pitchers. And I think that when you look at this Mets rotation, I hope that in the time that Senga is not active, because he's going to be out for a decent amount.
Yeah.
I want to see about 8 different guys make a start for us. I want to see them rotate a rotation more than an actual rotation does. And that's what I want to see. Like, I want to see starts from Budo. I want to see Lucchesi. I want to see McGill. Like, I want to see them really embrace the quantity that they have, because that's the only way you're going to make up for the innings that you're going to miss with Kodai Senga. And I think that that's the best way that you can do it. I don't want to see, the next man up of Kodai Senga, he's out. Well, we've got Tyler McGill to replace him, and he is gonna throw 160 innings like Senga did last year. That's not going to happen. So they need to do it with multiple options that they have. They need to flex that sort of depth. Also, I agree that with Peterson out, with Senga out, with now Kranick out, who was obviously one possibility, they do need to add somebody. And whether it is that guy they just signed on a minor league deal, I hope it's not. I'm hoping for them to add somebody, whether it is on a 1-year deal of some free agent out there, even though Stearns has not really made it public that they're going to go externally yet. I would like to see them add someone with, some experience, some upside, something like that, because the bottom half of the rotation is the bottom half of the rotation. You take what you can get, but I'd like to see just one arm in there that has some solidified success, whether it is, whether it is somebody like Michael Lorenzen, who we were talking about earlier off stream, or someone, Clevenger's got a lot of baggage to him, but there's a few guys who can come on in here on a 1-year deal and probably would take it at this current moment where the market is, where you have some of the top free agents still available. So it's just a very odd free agent market in general. So, I'm hoping, to be honest, that they go externally to try and just add one more solidified pitcher. But at this current moment, if they're happy with what they have right now, at this current moment with those 3 pitchers out, I'm okay with it. But we know that there's some injury concern with some other guys in this rotation. I'm looking at Luis Severino. All of them. I'm looking at Luis Severino. Hauser was not healthy last year. Minaya is odd. Sometimes he's healthy, sometimes he's not throughout his career. So I think that there's going to be, it's going to be a stretch, I would say, and we've seen some reports about some executive. I don't know if this was Martino or this is somebody else, but they said some think that the Mets are a few pitchers short, and I think that there's also some Mets fans who are countering that and saying, oh well, we can just bring up Vassell, we could just bring up Scott, and we should. I said this on my show yesterday, or when I recorded it, or 3 days ago. I said that I don't want pitching prospects coming up here, the pitching prospects that we have coming up here to replace an injured player as a panic move. I want to see them come up because they are ready. And that's what I think is really established with David Stearns, giving the rope to the young players, because he wants to see them succeed and not just panic and throw them out there into the fire.
Yeah, and I also think it's good not to overplay your hand with the way Stearns has handled, outside, pitching options. Look at what has happened already. If you go across town and all the talk about Blake Snell and are the Yankees going to get them? Are they not going to get them? The Mets have said they are not going externally. We don't know if they actually are or not. They've been keeping every investment that they made, every signing that they've made pretty much close to the vest since, Steve Cohen has come into owning this team. And I hope that they continue to keep it that way. And if we sign a Jordan Montgomery, awesome. If it's a Michael Lorenzen or, Andy Martino mentioned a Julio Teheran. It's interesting enough that those names were mentioned, and then Max Krennic goes down. So I wonder if those were moves that were thought about because they knew Krennic was going down. And let's not make it as if Krennic was going to make the team. It's just another option. And like you said, we need arms on this roster. We need depth in the roster. And I agree. I think a 6-man rotation is the right way to go. I think that helps boost, some of these pitchers who are fringe. Maybe they pitch well in spring training, but wouldn't normally get an opportunity. And that now they're, solidified in the rotation as that 6th man. I think something like that could work. And we all know, even with as healthy as Kodai Senga was last season, that he didn't really ramp up to pitching close to 5 days a week or every 5th day until mid-August. And that's when he kind of like tuned it up. So now you can probably scratch that for this season. I think it's going to be, you're going to have to protect his arm and have him pitch every 6th day, no matter what. So if they can figure out a way to make this 6-man rotation, I feel like Tyler McGill is a definite lock for the rotation at the end. He has the most experience, and he really kind of turned a little bit of a corner in that late August, early September run that he had. So I'm interested to see what he can bring to the table. We've heard raved reviews about his new American Sport pitch. We'll see if he can continue that. He's pitched well so far in this game today and against the Astros, and that's coming out of the bullpen. So he not only can he start for you, he could be that Trevor Williams type pitcher where he can come at in any instance, whether it's starting a game, whether it's coming in out of the bullpen and needing a couple of innings. He can be that guy. But I see him out of the gate as that 5th starter or wherever you want to place him in the rotation, whether it's 4 or 5 or however you see him fit. But also when you talk about that Trevor Williams role, I'm thinking about Jose Butto, another guy who had a great late August, early September, and was a pretty consistent pitcher alongside, Jose Quintana, where they would give up maybe 1, 2, 3 runs. They weren't getting run support to get wins, but they were pitching well enough to be in the rotation and also be a part of the bullpen. So, do you think that Jose Butto could play that role, or would you prefer him in the rotation?
I think he definitely could play that role. But I also like to look at the 6th starter in the 6-man rotation as also a long reliever as well. And that's something that I think that they might try and maybe enforce with Joey Lucchesi, someone who does have more starting experience than somebody like Jose Butto. But I think that, with Butto, you just really just look for innings with him and you just look for distance. He's just known as that rubber arm. Like, that's what I think that he, out of everybody, like the 6th spot to long relief, like that is like the perfect spot for him, where maybe on some days he doesn't have a good enough stuff to be a starter. Maybe at some points he doesn't have good enough stuff to be a reliever, but he's kind of just like in the middle where, maybe he can make you a spot start. Basically, he could be Trevor Williams. And I think that is where you kind of get the best value from Butto. And, overall, I think that his stuff looked a lot better than it was compared to last year. But again, we need to just I don't know. It's kind of hard because I'd love to see them maybe, plug somebody into the rotation that could start and plug somebody into the bullpen that could start. I think that's like something that they could do where maybe Butto, McGill, and Lucchesi are all on the roster at the same time. Like, you have a 6-man bullpen, and then you have that one guy who can flip-flop in and out. Then you have another guy in the rotation who can flip-flop in and out. So I think there's a way that they can manage this pitching staff because, again, like I said, with the 6-man rotation, it's something that they just need to do, especially with the concerns, not to mention with what the whole situation, obviously, with Kodai Senga, and he's going to be pitching every 6th day when they bring him back, obviously. But it's just so perfect to just put in a 6-man rotation, especially with other guys in this rotation. We talk about this all the time on our show. Luis Severino, injury history at the wazoo. Give him, an extra day of rest. Sean Manaea kind of adjusting to that whole rotation out of the bullpen thing from last year. Mm-hmm. Him getting an extra day of rest. Adrian Hauser was banged up last year. So you look at it and you give him the extra day of rest, and you can get more innings out of your starting pitchers from an extra day of rest, and they could pitch at max effort as compared to kind of saving the velocity a little bit and kind of distributing it out because they have that extra day of rest. And I think that that's something that's really important with it. And I think that that's the thing that they kind of need to enforce with that 6th starter, where whether it is Budo or whether it is Lucchesi or something, they need to basically find the innings without kind of scheduling the innings. If they can get innings out of the bullpen, or if they need, maybe a pitcher needs an extra day of rest, Budo, Lucchesi, those are your starters that come in a spot in long relief if somebody gets blown up, something like that. But I think that overall, if you're looking at it as Jose Budo, who's known to, when he's right, use his command of the zone as like Trevor Williams does, he can get you outs, he can eat you innings in a decent margin, shall we say. Like that's the rubber arm. Like, I don't see Jose Budo having this concern of, is this guy going to give me a decent amount of innings this year? Like, if you put Jose Budo in that position, he's going to give you innings like that.
Yep.
Like that's how I kind of look at it. It's like he's just a rubber arm. Now hopefully he doesn't get injured after I say that, but I think right now when you look at it, I think that his role is just it's flip-flop. I think that wherever you think comfort level is with him, you can put him in any situation, and he is going to give you quality from that situation because he's got that rubber arm that can give you innings.
Yeah, and thinking about it, there's so many ifs with the rotation, and the best way to balance that out is kind of the way you said, 6-man rotation, getting these guys the extra day of rest, which can help them out and maybe kind of, get the worries out of if this rotation can get us through a full season. Now, you mentioned the Mets signing another pitcher. Now, I brought it up on my phone. Anthony DiComo said that the Mets had signed right-hander John Duplantier to a minor league deal, especially adding him now that Max Krenick is out. So he'll add another level to the depth of this team. In the chat, let us know who you think should be the 5th or 6th starter. If there should be just a 5-man, I think everyone could be in agreement that we need a 6-man rotation. But who do you think should be those guys? From Tyler McGill, we got Joey Lucchesi, Jose Buto as part of that as well. So who are you guys thinking about that? Let us know in the chat. Lane Kerner asking, how do you feel about Jose Quintana? And, I think Jose Quintana is going to be that guy that he was last year. Now that his rib is healed, and they got the issue taken care of, as soon as he came back into the rotation, he was pretty solid from beginning to end. I mean, I think he gave a quality start every outing. I don't think I don't remember one outing where it was like, oh, this guy's giving up 5 or 6 runs. I don't remember that. I think it was 3 or less for Jose Quintana. Now, Jose Quintana being the ace of the staff, that's a little bit of a concern right now with Kodai Senga out. Him being your 2, okay. 3, 4 is where he should be situated. But, obviously with how everything's worked out with Kodai Senga. We still don't know about Luis Severino, who could technically, in his best year, could actually be the ace of this staff. If you think about that, and what his resume from his start with the Yankees. But since he's had that little kind of downfall, we don't know what we're going to get from him. Hopefully he can, fix the issues that he's had with his tipping of the pitches. And hopefully he'll get back into a decent form. I think he's going to be one of those more comeback type players of the year, especially on a 1-year contract. He's going to be looking to get another contract. So I think we're going to get the best out of Luis Severino. The fact that he gets to stay in New York, even though he's pitching in Queens, I think that helps as well. He didn't have to, move somewhere else like a San Diego or Kansas City or one of those other teams. But Jose Quintana, if he can give us the effort that he gave us last season, I think that's good. I just hope that he is not the ace for most of this season.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Quintana, it's really hard because, yeah, of course, he was injured last year and there was some concerns, but overall, I think it was kind of more of a freak injury as compared to, I mean, like a rib injury or what it was, like lesion on his rib or whatever they were talking about with that. And then he comes back and he gives you the quality that he's given you, what you've expected from giving a guy, $26 million over 2 years, back end starter, solid. I mean, overall, the workload of a starting pitcher one, he could definitely give you that. He could give you 150 innings. I'm definitely confident he can give you that. The dominance of a number one starter, no, he's not going to give you that whatsoever. I'm hoping that he's not the number one. I'm hoping that Severino comes out guns blazing in his debut for us. I'm very excited for him, obviously, but I just don't think he's the number one guy needs to be a strikeout pitcher to me. Like that. That's it. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He's a contact manager. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but he's there to give you quality. And I think that if you're going to expect starting pitcher one stuff from him, you're going to get disappointed. You definitely will. And I don't think he should be the opening day starter, but that's a different story. Because I think we should go with the guy who has experience in it, in Tyler McGill. Put the spotlight
I actually,
on him
you know
again.
what? I was thinking, since Quintana is kind of like the lone veteran, give him the start. But I am not opposed to it being Tyler McGill, who has gone on and pitched very well on opening day. What was it, 2022? He got that opportunity to pitch opening day, I think. And he pitched very well. He had a good April. That he was at ace level in that month of April.
Seen him. The best I've ever seen him. That opening day start was the best I've ever seen him. And this guy's reaching 98 to 99 in that start. The hard slider was there, and he was in control, and kind of just fell off towards there, and there just wasn't really any consistency that he's trying to build up. But different pitcher every single time, but. From what I've seen so far in spring training, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Tyler McGill, and so does Anthony DeComo, who just tweeted out that Tyler McGill looks like a man who wants to be in the opening day rotation. He struck out 4 batters over 3 shutout innings tonight against a representative Astros lineup, including Altuve, Alvarez, Bregman, and Tucker, and he's up to 7 Ks over 5 innings this spring. So he looks like he wants to be there in the rotation. I don't know what the stuff looks like, obviously, because I couldn't really see from the angle of Narnia that they were giving us just now. But I mean, I think that, when you look at Tyler McGill, he's there's been some examples where they've needed a win and he's gotten it for them. Like he's just been in there and he's toughened through it. And, with him, I think that just the mental makeup of him is a lot different as compared to a lot of other guys that they have here of, some that they can lose their head a little bit. With McGill, nothing really phases him. Like
he's like stone cold. Cold face.
He just keeps
going with it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing too is he's always put in this situation over the last 4 years now, whether, it was DeGrom out, both years, Scherzer, Verlander, who would have had to come into the rotation? Tyler McGill. And it's just another year with Tyler McGill coming in. And now I feel like since he's done it so many times, I feel like it's just nothing to him now. And it'll just be just another day being a part of the rotation. Ibby put in the chat the way he sees the rotation. I think we both can agree that if they're doing a 6-man rotation, this makes the most sense. Quintana, Severino, Manaea, McGill, Hauser, and Lucchesi. We talked about all these guys. Lucchesi is a guy last season who probably pitched the best game out of any starter. I would say, including Kodai Senga. He pitched the best game out in San Francisco, that shutout that he threw. I'd like to see a little bit more from Lucchesi. I think he gets put on the back burner a lot. Maybe this pitching in the minors, maybe it has motivated him to finally take that next step, to finally take that next leap, and to have him as that, sixth man where maybe the pressure's not all on him all the time. That maybe that this will finally be the year that we get a, somewhat full season, 10, 12, maybe we could get 15 starts out of Lucchesi, maybe, if they keep the 6-man going on.
Yeah, there's a possibility that happens. I mean, I'd say that, you just said, I mean, he does, Lucchesi does get overlooked a lot. I mean, sometimes he gets overlooked by me a lot too. I am not the biggest Lucchesi fan, but he showed a solid sample last year, and I think that he came back and recovered from what we saw initially with him before he got Tommy John surgery. I think that he pretty much matched that fairly well. But the thing is about Lucchesi, it's not really just anything against him. I just don't think that he's gonna really repeat what he gave you in that sample size of, like, I think that where you're looking at it, maybe you can represent it as what he was giving you in 2021, like, the sub 4.5 or whatever, like that's where he's gonna be really at. I kind of am expecting the hard contact to come up a little bit. I'm expecting the home runs to come up a little bit with him. I don't know. It's very hard to identify with Lucchesi because I mean it kind of sounds stupid, but like that windup that he has, it's so hit and miss to me, and it's sometimes it's just so hard.
You have to be perfect every single time.
You do. You have to hit a very small window.
It's like Dontrelle Willis almost, right? Like that.
Dontrelle Willis. I mean, even Max Scherzer, who's just like very violent and like just has to hit like a certain window or he's off. So that's just kind of with me. It's just very odd with Lucchesi. He's a very odd pitcher to assess, in my opinion. But I think that he showed that he is a valued member of this pitching staff. And he deserves chances, absolutely. But I definitely overlook him in comparison to like pieces like Budo or Tyler McGill, and maybe some, maybe in some cases Mike Vassell, maybe.
We got a kind of question and answer here from the chat. Lane Kerner saying, do you sign Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell? And Duran Rivera basically answered it. Mets won't sign Snell because he has a qualifying offer on him, which will cost them a draft pick. And they also have the Cohen tax. And if people don't know about this tax, you can sign Montgomery and you can sign Snell to their contract and then double that. What it's going to cost to have them, because that is a hefty price that I don't want to pay. I don't want Blake Snell because of the attachment to the draft pick. And, Jordan Montgomery is more of what I would want to add to this rotation. Montgomery kind of fits the mix of pitchers that we already have here, that, mid to tier 3 to 4 starter-ish type guy. He would be the guy that I would go after, but I don't see them doing that. We mentioned the Michael Lorenzens of the world. We mentioned, who is it? Julio Teheran, who Andy Martino brought up, who I feel like the Mets have been after for years. I feel like the Mets have wanted Julio Teheran for years. Like every spring training we come in, the Mets are close to, maybe they're thinking about signing Julio Teheran, and it never happens. So, hopefully it keeps it that way. I don't know if I would take a flyer on Lorenzen. You mentioned Clevenger. I don't see them doing this. So listen to what Stearns has said. He's pretty much has been spot on with everything that he has said and his strategy for how he's building this team. So I don't think that Montgomery or Snell are going to come here unless it's like that last minute 1 year type deal for a guy like Montgomery. You never know. Could possibly happen, but we won't know until that's signed because they keep everything close to the vest. Another Met made their debut, Adrian Hauser. Quite impressive. 2 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and a strikeout. Most of his outs were via the ground ball, which, Jose Iglesias vacuumed up, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about him later on in the show. I think this Hauser trade alongside Tyrone Taylor will go down as a very underrated move by season's end. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, it's a solid value move. I think that, you got a decent piece in outfield depth in Tyrone Taylor, who, as flawed as he can be, provides you a good amount of tools. And then you have Adrian Hauser, who can give you a lot of quality and quantity at the same time, where he can eat innings when he's fully healthy, obviously, but also the fact that we all know that he's right when he's getting ground balls. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He needs to get those ground balls. We saw ground balls this week. Perfect. If he's keeping it on the ground, that's exactly what his job is. That's exactly what he does all the time. And that's your back end piece of consistency. And I'm happy from what I saw from him. And it's good to see value come out of Eduardo Escobar, in my opinion. From what we saw from him last year, trading him for Coleman Crowe and Landon Marchessault, and Coleman Crowe going to the Brewers for Hauser and Taylor. So that's pretty good value ship off after what we saw with Eduardo Escobar, which was not great last year. So I think that it's definitely a step up in value to the team and made the roster better. And I think that both of them will be decent contributors for this roster. I like both of them in terms of the role that they have, and I'm going forward with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like both are going to be great values at the role they were specifically brought in here for. Adrian Hauser, that fifth starter, fifth guy. Tyrone Taylor, that, fourth outfielder who will come in, defensive replacement. We saw him in the outfield just snagging fly balls in the games that he's been playing so far. And the Mets have preached this offseason. David Stearns has preached this offseason about run prevention and defense. And with these guys that they've brought in, it's going to help a whole lot. So I do like this trade, and I do see it being a huge positive as we get through the 2024 season. Let's move to the bullpen. We've seen some solid bullpen performances so far to start this spring. I know it's only the first week, but it's encouraging because there are a couple of spots available in the bullpen. And, we even saw the Mets win a game that was a bullpen game that was started by Reed Garrett, and they all pitched very well out of the gate here. The most impressive for me so far has been Nate Lavender. 2 innings pitched, no hits, no earned runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts. I don't know about you, but his delivery kind of reminds me a little bit of Billy Wagner when you see him deliver that pitch. I don't think he will make the bullpen right out the gate because you got Brooks Raley and you got Jake Diekman on the roster, both left-handed, and I think they're going to go with the 2 veterans to start the season. I've always wanted to have multiple, pitchers that are lefties in the bullpen. I just don't think that they are going to carry 3 of them. Who is impressing you out the gate out of this bullpen?
I mean, I would definitely go with Lavender. Lavender was my stud of the week on my podcast.
Nice.
For us, we got that. And I've talked about it before. I was like, I never really understood why people like this Lavender guy all the time. Everybody's talking about him throughout the entire offseason. I'm like, okay.
And last year, too.
We've got something here. Okay. Yeah, last year, people were talking about him, like kind of one of these fringe pieces that's like, oh, maybe he makes the team, maybe he doesn't, maybe he makes an impression in the upper levels of the minor leagues. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. Like, yeah, the fastball's not as explosive, but when you've got, some extra extension or an extra kind of arm slot, you can get away with it as a left-handed pitcher. And I think that that's something that he's just displayed so far, and kind of just someone who pounds the strike zone, and I like it like that about him. I mean, I think you need a decent amount of control as a lefty from the angle that he throws in, and he does have it. Obviously, so far, I mean, I've liked Grant Hartwig.
You're a big Grant Hartwig fan. We know that.
Yeah, I love Grant Hartwig. Again, he's just another one, just like, Hauser or something. He's got to keep it on the ground, and he's going to succeed. And, great sinker baller, cutter guy. So I've liked what I've seen from him. I can't really remember who else we've had pitch, because we haven't seen Diaz yet. We have not seen Raley yet. We have not seen
Ottavino. I don't
He's
think
obviously
either.
coming back from Ottavino. I'm glad that we haven't.
Drew
to be
Smith?
honest, I don't need to see
Drew
him.
Smith hasn't pitched yet
We
either.
have not seen Drew Smith. Oh well. I think that overall, I think we've seen some guys that are competing for spots so far, and I think that it's been encouraging. Josh Walker was good the first or bad the first outing, and then was a little bit better. I think he pitched yesterday. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's been solid from what I've seen, but I'd say that Lavender and Hartwig are probably at the top of these guys. Are been pretty impressive so far, but again, still early. Who knows what happens?
Well, let's look at the bullpen outlook here. And these are what I have as locks right now. Edwin Diaz, Brooks Raley, Adam Ottavino, Jorge Lopez, Drew Smith, and Jake Diekman. With the latter two, I'm not so 100% on it. I don't know if I'm 100% on Jorge Lopez either. But on the bubble here, Phil Bickford, Shintaro Fujinami, Michael Tonkin, Sean Reed Foley, like you mentioned, Grant Hartwig and Josh Walker. Reed Garrett is there, Johan Ramirez, Austin Adams, Yaxel Rios, who's another guy that we saw that was very interesting, and Nate Lavender. Out of these guys, how do you round out this bullpen?
Oh, Yaxel Rios is another one. There we go. There's a reminder. Looks like he's gained a little bit back of his velocity that he lost. I think I don't know if it was last year or the year before. So, he was pumping 97, something like that. So yeah, I obviously look for my explosiveness with a lot of relievers. So that's what I need. I need the strikeouts. I need the high leverage type of stuff, whether it is from the top of the bullpen or the back end. I mean, like I said, Lavender, let's see. On the bubble, I mean, I think Shintaro Fujinami will probably be in the opening day bullpen.
Also, he has an option.
He does have an option.
So that he may be one of the guys that gets sent down.
Maybe if he does struggle, I mean, he could start off in AAA. There's a possibility. We've seen him struggle last year, which was brutal. Let's see. I think that I don't know how to feel about it, because again, it's just like, you're getting one inning from these guys, but.
Okay, let me bring it back up with all the names.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Sean Reed Foley. I like Sean Reed Foley a lot. He's one of the guys I'm high on.
And he falls into that. He falls into that, mid-tier reliever that can give you innings. That Trevor Williams type guy. So that's another one.
Yeah, definitely.
Tonkin,
I mean, you can get Tonkin as well. Like, you can get some multiple innings from these guys. For Sean Reed Foley, I would say off of Tommy John surgery, he's probably more of a one inning guy now. But I'd say that, Phil Bickford, I'm not the biggest fan of. Michael Tonkin's fine. He's all right. Some of these guys are like at best so average. Some of them have a little bit upside. Like, Yaxel Rios, lots of upside with the stuff that he has. Sean Reed Foley, I'm big on. So there's some pieces that are like on that bubble there, but. So far, I'd say that we're building a decent depth chart so far from the mind of David Stearns. I have not been completely disappointed with anybody so far in terms of bullpen arms. I know that Jorge Lopez struggled a little bit, but, hopefully we can get a little bit more full force from him. Looked like the velo was down a little bit. But first outing,
he also faced a guy that took him deep in the past, like who had his number, but he was getting a little bit hit hard in that one.
He was, and listen, I think that overall, I think that was kind of more of what you saw last year with him, where there was just a lot of instances where a curveball that didn't curve or a sinker that didn't sink. Like, that's kind of how you looked at it with Jorge Lopez, who has that stuff, but sometimes there's just uncompetitive pitches that get smacked over the wall. And hopefully that they can like kind of, vary into kind of getting a better pitch sequence with him and, make a few of those adjustments. And that's just how relievers are. I mean, we know that, but overall the consistency from bullpen candidates so far has been impressive. I really am. I'm impressed so far, but again, it's the first week. At some point, maybe one of them can turn me, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited with a lot of these arms that have been brought in because during this offseason, there's always been a reason as to why David Stearns brought one of these arms in, and I've been like, okay, I get it. I get why this guy, like, you look into it deeply of some of the numbers that they have and some of the upside of the stuff or, whatever specs that you're looking at. And I understand the upside that they do have. And, yeah, I mean, there's been like a few pieces where I'm like, okay, what is this? But full on, I mean, these guys can be viable relievers with the upside that they have. And hopefully they could tap into that, which is David Stearns' bread and butter. That's been his thing throughout his entire career as an executive.
Yeah, and he's helped build the bullpens every year in Milwaukee to viable point where this team was a consistent contender in the postseason. So, I'm excited to see where it goes. And obviously, we're going to get some bad outings from these guys. But what I like is that each of these guys' outings has pushed the other one to try to be better and better. And, you got to, well, I'm not as concerned, but a guy like Drew Smith should be concerned that his spot is not 100%. And if he pitches anyway like he did towards the end of 2022 and the whole season of 2023, he's not a lock to stay in this bullpen. I with the Dominic Leones and the Trevor Gotts of the world in this bullpen, his spot was kind of safe. So, this year, I don't think it's as safe as people may think it is. Same would go for Jake Diekman, especially if a guy like Nate Lavender, who Jose Lopez Moya said had around 14.1 strikeouts in the minors. Guy has guts just pitching with 91, 92 mile per hour fastballs. And, with his distinctive delivery, which, I'll continue to say reminds me of Billy Wagner, he will be in this bullpen at some point within the next few years if he's not traded. That is for certain for me. Carlos Ortiz saying, what's up? How's it going, man? Always glad to have you in the chat. Let's move to the bench. And once again, I'm here with Carson of Mets Weekly. Follow Carson on Twitter/X at MWCars and at Mets Weekly Pod. So follow both of those accounts and make sure you are subscribing to them on YouTube. Like I said, let's move to the position players offense, specifically the bench. There's two standouts for me so far, Trace Thompson and Jose Iglesias. Thompson, 4 hits. He had 2 home runs, 6 RBI so far. Iglesias has 2 6 and 6 at bats, but more for his defense and how he's able to just, like I said earlier, just vacuum up the ball in some great defensive plays he made, especially in the Adrian Hauser start. He's been a pretty solid hitter throughout his career. Veteran presence, kind of could be like that mentor-ish type player on the roster. Any chance either of these two make the opening day roster on that bench, or is the bench pretty much set from the start right now?
I think Trace Thompson right now has the upper hand. I mean, I really like the hitting profile of this guy. Like, I really just,
power.
He's got power. He's got some pop. He can pull the ball like that. That's what I like those types of hard-nosed power guys that see something in the zone, they're going to crush it. And that's something that I've really seen from Trace Thompson. We've seen that type of streak hitting from him throughout his career. And they've talked about it with him where they're like, okay, this guy's good. He's got the talent, but he's just not really gotten a chance. And that I'm really hoping that maybe we do give him a chance, especially when other guys are not producing or whatever. And like I said, I mean, I've been saying this, the past 48 hours. I mean, watching Vientos and Beatty go back and forth of just complete snooze fest. I'm wondering if Trace Thompson can play third base. Like, at this point, it's just getting a little bit tiring. As the last AB, we got another update for Brett Beatty. He grounded out to third base.
It's getting late early for those two.
It is. It really is. And, But as for Trace Thompson, obviously I don't want to go off Beatty because I'll just go off the rails with him. But I think Trace Thompson's great hitter overall. I think that he's got that upside to be one, and he's proven it so far. The batted ball data was there. We've seen some numbers from unqualified sample sizes that he's got some pop in his bat. Makes great quality of contact. So, if he's hot, he's hot, and there's a possibility where maybe he comes up here for injuries. Because again, this outfield, there is injury concern with Harrison Bader, with Starling Marte. Nimmo's been healthy recently, but you just never know. He's going into his 30s. So Trace Thompson, a piece like that, someone who has the upside to be a good hitter. I'm good with that. Jose Iglesias, I've always loved him defensively. I think he's one of the smoothest gloves out there, and he's been for a long, long time. I loved him even more when I found out that he tried to beat up James McCann. That was fantastic. If he can hit, he can hit. But again, if that is something that, is shown throughout the minor leagues, even, he's had a decent sample in the major leagues so far. And I think, if Joey Wendell ain't hitting, he might be knocking on the door as well for him. As I stutter like 3 times when I say that, but I think that, Iglesias today, he is 0 for 3. So his stock went down a little bit. But overall as a player, he's got some decent amount of tools. He's a little bit on the older side, so you're not going to be seeing him swiping bases, but the man's got some quick hands. And I think that maybe it was right to get a somewhat Guillorme replacement 3 years ago with him.
Yeah.
But now, he's a little bit older now, but so far he's been very impressive. And just overall him defensively, he's a very impressive piece. And they've talked about it on the broadcast. Gary was talking about it, and so was Ron Darling. They were talking about it. It was you look at Lindor, and he's so routine, and he's so fundamentally sound when he's playing defense. And Lindor, while he does that, is one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. But also Jose Iglesias, the complete opposite. He's just so smooth. He's so just ballet smooth in the field. That's him. He's just got these ridiculous hands and ridiculous reaction time. And the two of them, together out there so far, it's looked pretty nice. It's looked smooth. It just doesn't seem robotic or forced or whatever with the two of them up the middle. And that has been very impressive. And if they want a defensive replacement such as Jose Iglesias, I think that he could do that. Just not playing the outfield I'm sure. I think Wendell has played the outfield a little bit. I don't know if he can do that anymore, but there's a few knocking on the door right now, and could be the first guys up if there is an injury to replace a certain player. And I'm hoping that they replace the role that they're meant to play. I'm hoping that we don't call up, let's say, knock on wood or whatever, but let's say Pete Alonso, is out for a little bit. Hopefully we're not calling up Jose Iglesias to replace him. That. That's
that pretty much ends the season right there.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody like Vientos or somebody like Wendell, or an infielder that's on the fringe of the roster that hasn't really proven much yet, maybe you could replace that with Jose Iglesias, something like that. Trace Thompson, obviously, with the outfield, you just never know. I think he's the first guy up. If he doesn't make the team, I think he's the first guy up, and I like him way more compared to somebody like Tim LeCastro last year. And I know a lot of people like Tim LeCastro. He's a big meme or whatever. Everyone likes him. It's fun for me. I like to win. So with a guy like Trace Thompson, who actually profiles a actual major league hitter, as compared to Tim LeCastro, who's just a novelty. I like that a little bit better. As Kevin Parada, one of our prospects, just singled. That's good. That's encouraging. He was looking a little bit uncompetitive so far this spring, so that was good. So update from the game for those of you who are not watching.
Yeah, Kevin Parada has had a rough spring to start. He had a semi-rough year last year as well. We did the bullpen outlook. Let's let's take a look at the bench there. The locks for me, Omar Narvaez, unless he gets traded, then I guess Tomas Nido would be the catcher. Joey Wendell, Tyrone Taylor. And then, I have DJ Stewart, Vientos, and Beatty on the bubble if they're not playing well. Trace Thompson, we mentioned Jose Iglesias. If DJ Stewart doesn't play well, or Vientos, G-Man Choi or Luke Voigt could be a guy that takes that spot. You also have Ben Gamel and Rylan Bannon, who was mentioned earlier on in the chat by, I think it was, let me see who mentioned that in the chat. Duran Rivera had mentioned Rylan Bannon in there. Also, Zach Short as well. He's another defensive infielder that can make it as well. So, how do you round out this bench, with you definitely have to have the backup catcher. You have to have a backup infielder, and then one at least, outfield, fourth outfielder. Who do you round it out with? Is it two outfielders with Trace Thompson and then another infielder? Is it just a 4-man bench? Where do you go from here?
It's hard because, like, when you're looking at the 6-man rotation, you have like an extra guy in that rotation, so you're kind of like fixing it up a little bit. You might have to go with a 4-man bench, and I think that they are definitely fit for a 4-man bench because they have a lot of positional flexibility as compared to it. So I'd say that G-Man Choi is definitely up there as a possibility, but it's hard to see Vientos up here with Choi, with the possibility of like DJ Stewart. You can actually be a little bit more flexible because he can play the outfield. So it's weird because I don't know how they want to configure it, because like obviously you have your locks in Narvaez. He's going to be here. He's getting paid whatever for the rest of the year. And then I think Tyrone Taylor is a lock so far. I mean, he's just as what he was as advertised in this trade so far. It's hard to round this thing out because I don't know. There's different combinations they could go with. Whether they want a DH platoon to kind of insurance Vientos, but it's hard to do that with the leading man in G-Man Choi, who's been hitting so well so far, because he's not great against lefties, like, at all. But I think that I don't think that if you're going to commit to Vientos, you can't have him platoon. Like, you have to just give him the at-bats every single day to see if you get something from him. So it's hard to put Choi and Voigt into that equation of them being on the opening day roster as well as Mark Vientos. Like, I think you just can only have one DH there. Like, I'm personally tired of the I don't want to see another rough Vogelbach situation. Like, I don't want to see that again.
Totally agree. The DH position, I think, belongs to one very good power hitter. Like, David Ortiz was the DH of the Boston Red Sox. JD Martinez was the DH of the Dodgers and Detroit and Boston. I'm tired of the platoon DH. It's not working. It's just not.
Yeah, it has not worked. And even though you could do platoon combinations with Stewart and Voigt, or Voigt and G-Man Choi, or Vientos and one, like, you could do that because you have two lefties and two righties, but I don't want to see two of them on the. If you're going to make a commitment to one of them, make a commitment to one. I like the hitting profiles of all four of these guys. Like, I think that they all, like, at their best, they could give you DH production, but I don't want to see two of them on there. Two of them, just because I don't know if it's a PTSD thing of what we saw with the DH platoon or whatever, and not giving it to just one guy being the DH. And that's the main reason why, as to, like, I think that, the JD Martinez talk, like, that's just gone out the window at this point. Like, I think that this, like, one of these four guys is going to be your DH, depending on how they do in spring. I hope that that's how they address that, because the DH has been just such a, like, just a nightmare since they put this in for the Mets. And as compared to, as compared to anything that's been going on with Vientos or what's been going on with G-Man Choi or DJ Stewart. Or, like, I'm okay with the hitting profiles of all four of these guys. Like, I'm okay with it. In a pinch, they could produce for you. It all really just depends on, because that's kind of how it is with all four of them. They're streaky. It all depends on who is hot, and that's how they really have to go on with it. It's hard to catch lightning in a bottle with this type of thing. Like, it's easier to just go out and sign the guy, but it's like, when you look at it right now, Vientos, he's got the upside. He's young. Then you have Voit, who can give you a little bit of extra power when he's hot and seeing the ball well. Choi, a little bit more of a seasoned hitter. And then also DJ Stewart, who had the big stretch. Again, decent profile or whatever, but there's nothing like consistency you can go off of. Like, there's just nothing there. But, you know, he could be good. Like, all of these guys could be good. You just have to see it and see who produces in that way. So I'm okay with, like, any of them, but I just don't want two of them there because I want the bench to have a little bit more versatility, especially in terms of the outfield. I need two outfielders on that bench, in my opinion. Like, I need that with the concern that you have going on with Marte's health, with Bader's health. Again, like I said, even Nimmo, even though he's had health issues in the past, he's going into his 30s, so you always have that precaution. And I think that's how they kind of have to look at it, where, you know, you have two outfielders on the bench. You have Joey Wendell, who I guess is your backup infielder or whatever. And then you also have some DH options who, you know, could play the infield and the outfield if you have them here. So that's kind of an extra there in the starting lineup. I think that's kind of how they have to look at it, because I don't want two DHs on my roster at the same time. And even though Vientos can play a position, he doesn't play it well enough for me to establish, he's going to be my backup third baseman. He is going to be my first baseman if Pete Alonso needs a day off and DH. Like, you can't be doing that. Like, it just can't, like, especially if you're going to harbor a 6-man rotation, what they need to do to keep everybody healthy with the rotation they have right now, and also with the bullpen and everything. They can't really do a 5-man bench. They can't really afford to do that unless they want a shorthanded bullpen. A 4-man bench right now is all they can muster, but they need versatility in that bench to provide some value. It can't just be two DHs on the roster. It just can't happen.
A lot of people in the chat agree with That's My Sports, saying that Choi could be a good DH choice. Definitely could be, especially from that left-handed side there. So if he continues to hit, he's been hitting well so far at the start of this spring training. We'll see where, you know, he ends up, especially if a guy like DJ Stewart does not, you know, show up at spring training. We'll see what happens with a G-Man Choi or even a Luke Voit. Duran Rivera makes a good point here, and this could go with the bench and the bullpen. A lot of the decisions depend on performance or whoever has options that could be sent back to the minors. So I'm pretty sure that Stearns and the Mets are going to be playing that strategy when it comes to putting this roster together at the end of March. As we move on with the show, I want to talk about the prospects. What has stood out to you? We had Luis Angel Acuna so far. We got to see him play. We're getting to see Drew Gilbert, who had a big hit a couple of games ago on an 0-2 count with the bases loaded. That's stuff you like to see right there. So he got some playing time. Jet Williams has also been in here. We talked about Kevin Parada, who doesn't look comfortable at all. And the standout to me so far has been a guy who struggled all of last season, who was, you know, highly touted for a while, and that's Alex Ramirez. I don't know if he was in the lineup tonight, but as of, you know, when I put together my rundown, he had, 4 hits and 8 at-bats, looking to kind of turn the corner after a rough 2023 season. Happy to see him get off to this start that, he desperately needs. What have you liked and disliked from the play so far of the prospects who are getting this opportunity? We're getting an opportunity to see them, all the ones that have been talked about, all the ones that were traded during except for Ryan Clifford, who we haven't seen yet. But, we're getting to see the prospects that we've been hearing about. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from them so far?
Yeah, I mean, are we counting Beatty or Vientos? Because how much time you got on them? It's like, I guess we're not counting them as prospects as of right now. They're kind of like major leaguers fringe. But, I mean, overall, I think that we've seen tools on display with all of these prospects so far. Alex Ramirez has been the most impressive, obviously, something that really was a big bugaboo for him a long time was hitting velocity and pitch recognition. And so far he has looked pretty good. And it's been pretty impressive to see kind of him, being in that spotlight so far, because like he kind of just like went under the radar, with spring training these last 2 years where he got a few at bats. Maybe you get like a hit or two or whatever, but nothing crazy. I guess we're all waiting for what's up, Yuki. I guess we're all waiting for my stance on Jet Williams. It really hasn't changed.
No.
I think it really hasn't changed. I think that he's kind of just like what I'm really I really have just been expecting. I mean, it's just like, getting the infield hits. You're not really going to see much power. You're going to see a lot of discipline. He's had the discipline on display, of course. And listen, I don't hate Jet Williams. I think that I over exaggerate it a lot. But I think that, then there's the crowd that thinks like he's the next Altuve, the next superstar of this game. And, that's a little too much, as, that I think that it's really hard to live up to that type of standard. But I don't know. It's whatever. Like you've had the tools on display again that can help you win. Same thing goes for Luis Angel Acuna and stuff like that. Again, there is a place for this type of play style that Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna have, where athleticism has kind of become a little more part of the game. It has an uptick now. The bigger bases, the pitch clock and things like that, the shift band, things like that. Athleticism does have a position here. And I think that you do have it. But again, there's some things that we have really, they do need to limit a little bit of it. They can't have a Jet and Acuna and all these guys on the roster at the same time. Like overall, I don't think that Jet and Acuna can have a future on this team at the same time. Like, I just don't see that as a possibility, even though maybe you move into the outfield, maybe you move into this, or maybe move into that. But both of them 5'8" outfielders are not really very common. Again, listen, I understand with this and that, but, Drew Gilbert's a different story. I think that he's the real short king, shall we say, for those of you who think of that. But I think that all of them have shown what I've expected so far. And I'm expecting a big year from Alex Ramirez. I think that, Stearns putting in a lot of trust to him has been, I think, maybe a little bit of a confidence boost for him. 21 years old, still young, tons of upside. I'm a big believer in Alex Ramirez. I like him a lot. I like the ceiling of him. And yeah, I think, Kevin Parada, that bat is, it looks like a concern. It does look like a concern. They talked about him having such a quick bat. I'm not seeing him catch up to anything. Looks very vulnerable against breaking balls. I'm not seeing it. I think the defense has had an improvement overall from what the little that we've seen from him. I don't know who else of any other prospects besides Gilbert, Acuna, Jet, Parada.
We will be seeing this weekend.
Oh yeah,
Mike Vassell,
yeah.
Christian Scott will be on the mound. I think it's Saturday. They will be pitching.
Yes.
Don't quote me on that, but it's at
And
some
also
point this
Manaya, I
weekend.
think, in that same day as well. Manaya will be on the mound as well. So there's a lot of pitching performances to look out for this week, I'd say. It's looked good. I think that overall, the value that they can provide some of these prospects, it has been on full display so far in terms of with Jet, the plate discipline, the speed. Acuna, you've seen some of the base running as well with him. You know that I don't know about the bat with him still. It's just kind of it's hit or miss with me. I don't know. There's just some inconsistency that I see down the line with him. Parada, we've seen some of the defense pick up a little bit. I think that all of them look at what they should be in the current stage of what we were expecting. And it's nothing has really been like a huge, this guy like last year when Mauricio was just hitting complete tanks in spring training. Nothing compared to that so far, but it's still early. Maybe we get a hot stretch from somebody. But I've liked what I've seen so far of the value that they can contribute. And they've put that on full display so far in the early stages of spring training, which has been impressive.
It's so interesting to see how the dynamic of almost the entire, offense and the entire lineup defensively has changed with Mauricio being out for the season. Because now there's more of an emphasis on Brett Beatty to do well, because there was no lock that Brett Beatty was going to be the third baseman. A lot of the thought going in was, is Ronnie Mauricio going to win this job at third base? No one thought it would be up to him, up to Vientos, up to Beatty. And now you have to have McNeil move back to second. Who knows? Some people are talking about him even playing third, which I don't want to see. I don't like him at third. I think second base he's good at, and he's good in the outfield, but I don't want to see him at third. And the guy that I think that's going to come up, you mentioned him, Drew Gilbert. I think that's going to be the first guy that we see. And when he comes up, maybe it's due to an injury or something. Maybe it's because, Marte, is not 100% as, he claims to be, or maybe Bader goes down. Or, I don't want to see him go down at all. I love Nimmo, but Nimmo has not been the most consistent when it comes to being healthy over the last 2 years. He has been, but you never know, that could change. But I think Drew Gilbert is definitely the guy that will get that first crack. And I don't want him being thrusted into this like, Beatty and Vientos were in 2002 when they were 2022 when they were expected to be, the help or the saviors of the offense, when all the injuries went down. I think the way that Francisco Alvarez came up in 2022 as well was not the proper way to bring him up. But in 2023, he was able to grow into becoming the catcher. And eventually he became, one of the top catchers in the major league offensively for a couple of months. He was the top catcher in the major leagues. And, I would like that kind of more projection for a Drew Gilbert coming up when time comes. I'm talking about Francisco Alvarez before we wrap up this show. He looks like he's ready to become the true leader of this team at some point in the next couple of years. I know it's only the second season, but the way he's handled the pitching staff, the strides he's made on offense, plus is just earnest to learn the English language. As you've seen him do, interviews. He sits with Steve Gelbs. He did the other interview with Gary Cohen the other day. How impressed are you with how far Alvy has come?
I mean, it just really is. It's a breath of fresh air, really. Just seeing a young player come up here as compared to just, man, some of these prospects that we've come up where, they're supposed to be good. They're supposed to be this. They're supposed to be that. But it's just like this kid just wants to be better at everything that he was the previous day. Like it just,
yep.
There is so much like confidence that he knows that he can do it. I mean, it's just, this kid is they talked about how much of a hard worker he is. Full display. I mean, you are seeing how hard of a worker he is to be that at only 22 years old, as, undisciplined as some of these young players can be, it's really been a breath of fresh air to see a young player like this just look like he just fits in. He fits into the major leagues all along. It just and that's hard to do as a catcher. It's a very rare thing to do because it's a hard position to develop. And for him to do that at this level, at this age, it's just really, really impressive. And I think that, the fact that he's so young, he is just only going to get better. And he's only shown signs that he's going to get better. I'm not really seeing much of him slowing down. I mean, I just think that he is going to be a big part of this team for years and years to come.
Carlos Ortiz thinks he's going to be an MVP one day. I mean, he was the top prospect in Major League Baseball. So this, a future prediction, is one that I wouldn't mind seeing. Imagine Francisco Alvarez, the first New York Met to be MVP, because the Mets have never had an MVP before. So that would be nice to see. Maureen in the chat here, don't forget to give a thumbs up, everyone. Yes, that would be very much appreciated. A thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel as well as subscribe to Mets Weekly and follow them and all the great work that we're doing. Carson, thank you so much for joining the podcast this week. Let everyone know what you're working on. Definitely mention the 30 projections in 30 days because I have been keeping up with those. I was working out earlier today, watching the Jose Quintana one that you dropped earlier. So that was a very good just content that you have been putting together. So let everyone know what you're working on with that, what else you're working on, and how people can interact with you.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I do a show called Mets Weekly with my two co-hosts, Andrew and Frank. Every single week, we kind of just go on rants about what's going on with the Mets and in segment base. We talk about it from a brutal, honest perspective. So I try to be as constructive as I can. Sometimes we go off the rails. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's arguments. Sometimes there isn't. And it's a lot of fun to just basically full on rant until your throat is sore about a team that just drives you nuts. But yeah, also we've been doing the 30 projections in 30 days, like you said, leading all the way up to opening day. There's going to be a video on our YouTube channel discussing a player. Today was Jose Quintana. We've done Sean Reed-Foley so far. Joey Wendell had a video. I mean, all of them are pre-recorded as of right now. I just, every single day, I'm popping one out. And yeah, it's been fun. I kind of give my own spin on it compared to other projection systems, such as, Steamer and Fangraphs and all those, from what I see from like the perspective of advanced data and stuff like that. So that's been a lot of fun. And yeah, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time is when our podcast premieres every single week. And then we have some other stuff in the works, but nothing too crazy as compared to right now. So I'm excited for the baseball season. That's pretty much it. And we're just going to be pumping out content every single day throughout spring training and the podcast every week.
Carson, I'm very excited to, have you on again at some point during the season. I'm sure we'll link up. I'm definitely going to reach out to Frank and Andrew and have them on the show as well. Darren Rivera, outstanding show. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone in the chat today. We had a little over 21 people. I don't know how accurate that is from StreamYard and how many people are watching. It always changes, but I appreciate everyone that has been a part of this chat. That has asked questions and put their comments in. We really appreciate it. And that's going to wrap up Subway to Shea here. You can follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can listen and subscribe to the Subway to Shea podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch and subscribe on YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode and enjoy Subway to Shea in general, leave a review. give me 5 stars. And like what Maureen mentioned earlier, hit that like button. I really appreciate that. With that said, thank you for tuning in and helping my podcast grow. It is a pleasure sharing this content with you every week, and you continue to be a major part of the success of the Subway To Shea brand, and I appreciate all of you for that. So for Anthony Rivera, Carson from Mets Weekly, this has been the Subway To Shea podcast, and always remember, never forget, let's go Mets.